Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. I'm going to shift screens for a second so I can move on to my PowerPoint presentation for the day. Okay, and it says I can't do that, so I don't know how to do that. All right, so here we go. We're going to do this. It's called the beauty of initiation. I'm going to run through it rather quickly so we don't take more than 5 or 7 minutes. First, we confront our shadow. The shadow is the person that appears in the same gender in your dreams as an indication that your unconscious mind is bridging to the surface. And it's different than your daylight personality. It has some darkness in it, which doesn't mean it's scary like Freddy Krueger, but it means that there are things that are dimly lit and maybe not rational, but they're irrational, not necessarily irrational. And you learn that your unconscious mind mirrors back to you the relationship your ego takes to the unconscious mind. If you think that what's going on inside you is a festering swamp of insanity, you're not going to want to go in there. But if you thought it was the repository of all virtues, like the Library of Congress of the universe, you'd have access to everything you need, much more than the wide world of the internet. Now, when you turn your back on the shadow, strangely enough, turn your back on the light, what happens is your shadow gets projected in front of you. So you have to realize that the psychic world is not just within you, it's in the field outside of you as well. You got to pay attention to that, how you project your own darkness and torment yourself by what you think about things in the world. Got to clean that up. Now, the shadow, the dream world works on symbolic analogy. There's a story of somebody who had a dream that said the tables were washed up on the beach, and they understood what it was. It was a connection to the mainland. But the neighbors didn't like it. They thought it was ugly. They wanted it thrown back in the sea. But the dreamer was able to convince them of its practical and functional effectiveness. So they accepted it. So they made the connection with the unconscious, the island to the mainland. All right. Oh, strange quote from Caligula. I have existed from the morning of the world, and I shall exist until the last star falls from the night. Although I've taken the form of Gaius Caligula, I am all men, and I am no man, and as I am no man, therefore I am a god. Wow. He effaced himself, but he was a crazy maniac, wasn't he? So the idea here is you have to depose the tyranny of your own inner aestheticism, which finds no values other than its own, to allow other things to come in. Otherwise, you can't be initiated into anything. To be initiated means to learn something new. Anything you learn is an initiation into that. So you got to drop your ego to learn. Once upon a time, I swore I had a heart. Long before the world I know tore it all apart. Once upon a time, there was a part of me I shared. Years before they took away the part of me that cared. Oh, you got to fight to get that innocence back. To realize you lost the connection, that excitement, that wonder, newness, the amazing quality you had when you were a kid. So in our world, it's the transition states that make us go down, descend, and look at our stuff. Because when you're forced to go down, you're not so much as liberty to when to decide you're going to come up. But if you choose to go down and allow those experiences to open you, a lot of growth can come. Now, we all get initiated in different ways. Part of it is like going into the unknown because you don't know what's going to happen. If you know what's happening, you're commuting. So when you have one of these descents, it changes your ontological status and you're not sure what's going to happen as a result of that. But you flow with it because you have no other choice. Then you realize you have to distance yourself from your parents in the most positive way. They're not your mentors. They're the high priest and high priestess of another order. They're worshiping in a different temple. They can't possibly see it the way that you do. But your mentor is in competition with you, not competition like in the sense of a tennis game. We have somebody on the other side that you compete against. But here, you're petitioning the same deity. You're looking in the same direction. And therefore, you share the same fantasy. You pray in the same temple. And they recognize what your spiritual value is. Unlike your parents who are trying to protect you, the mentor doesn't care about your protection, but cares that you get the spiritual transmission. And then you accept this idea that one part of us has like a beacon device, homing device, calling us back to the source of our existence. the essence of whatever the universe and the life is that has made everything to be the way it is. So we long for union with that. But longing, by definition, is a state of dissatisfaction. And so you have to make peace with the beast in you that longs for union by having union with the longing. And then you can recognize that's how we're made, to always want to find this place that's a huge mystery, and yet it's few of everything without which nothing could exist. And so we sense the separation and we want the connection again. So although you're longing for union, you have to learn what it is to have union with the longing. Oh boy, me, I, me, mine. George Harrison says the problem with I, me, mine is you're liable to step on one and it's going to explode. Nonetheless, conversation is intercourse for the soul, at least could be. And whenever you talk about the big ideas, beauty breaks out. So elevate the conversation, talk about freedom, talk about beauty, talk about infinity, talk about love, and you'll see deepening happens. Just like when you change your asana practice, your language changes as your asana practice deepens. Now, here's a strange idea from James Hillman, that we always pick the impossible lover because they keep the wound open. Why would we want to keep the wound open? Spirit flies high and ascends and goes beyond everything, but the soul loves deepening, loves the convoluted mess, the melodrama. It just loves pulling taffy on all issues and amplifying it in as many ways as possible, seeing it from above, seeing it from below, seeing it from the side, seeing it from within, and so forth. And so somehow we end up attracted to people who trigger us in a certain way because that's where we need the work. It's strange that way, aren't we? All right. Emerson said life is a condition which is a solution in hieroglyphic. Everyone's condition is a solution in hieroglyphic to the questions we would put. But it must be first lived as reality before it's apprehended as truth. Boy, I love that. Everyone's condition is a solution in hieroglyphic, but we don't understand it. So you have to live it as reality before you apprehend it as truth. Big mouthful. Thank you for that, Ralph Waldo. And then look at this duality. There's one part of the cosmos that's unbelievable. It's awesome when you think about what it is. And you bring it down to the boots on the ground, there's other things about it that's awful, what we do to each other. We're the same being, and everybody's experiencing these two polarities. It's just, how do you handle it? Does it make you crazy? Or does it help you step up into what your potential is? So your potential is the self, the totality of everything. Totality of all potential is the self. It has no problem. It is the organ of acceptance par excellence. It can take the dualities, the light and the dark. So it represents a psychological expression of your totality. That's what all mandalas are. They have a center and they radiate out equally from the point of the center, just like your eyeball, your iris does. Check it out. You'll see what I mean. All right. And when you take initiation, you'll end up in the service of the king and queen who believes in just order, whose job is to bless you and to liberate you, unless they're in a shadow, in which case they're a tyrant and a weakling instead of a strong leader. Then you have the magician energy, the Jnana Yogi, as they like to call it. They inform you and give you the true scoop. They steward entry and exit into sacred space. They're the keepers of the old law. But when they're in negative shadow or high priestess, then they're manipulating and they're denying innocence in their manipulation as they do it. We also have a male and female warrior within us archetypally. They draw boundaries, they serve and protect, they carry out the dictate of the king and queen. If the king and queen gets the vision from the high priest and high priestess, and they dictate this should be so, it's the warrior that carries that out. So you learn to act with discipline, you learn to act with skill, and you serve that transpersonal end, which is worthy to be loyal to. Unless you're a shadow warrior, then you're a mercenary, and then you end up to be a sadist and using your force to hurt other people, and then you always got to look for masochists who are willing to take it. But finally, you come into your lover, and hopefully this is where you learn to reach out, to find affiliation, intimacy, play. Unless you're a shadow lover, then you're lost in impotence or addiction. Hope you got some good messages for your initiatory path.